The silent approval hack. It's a silent technique, but it's powerful enough to be banned in most negotiation and leadership training courses. Our brains perceive unspoken approvals much more strongly than spoken words. Our brains cannot perform the same level of reasoning with body language as they do with words. Think about it. While someone is speaking, you simply nod your head slightly, giving the message, "I understand," with your eyes, and add a small smile. Whether you agree with what they are saying or not is irrelevant. The person you are speaking to receives the following signal in their brain: this person is on my side, they are trustworthy. And that's where the danger begins, because people become vulnerable to the suggestions of those who approve of them. Social psychology proves that this method creates invisible leadership, especially in group decisions. That's why this hack has been banned in many negotiation and leadership training programs, because silent approval, when used in the wrong hands and unnoticed, can shape both ideas and people. I'm telling you this and the other banned hacks that follow not so you can use them, but so you can recognize them when they're used and defend yourself. And believe me, what you've seen so far is nothing. Emotional echo hack. This technique works with emotions rather than words. You notice the tone of voice, facial expressions, and word choices of the person you are talking to. You then mirror these in small doses. For example, if someone is excitedly telling you something, you respond with the same energy. If they are speaking slowly and seriously, you lower your tone of voice accordingly. The brain interprets this matching as someone who understands me. This is where the connection begins. Studies show that emotional matching increases trust by 60%. And of course, you become more open and vulnerable in every way towards someone you trust. That's why this method is banned in some sales and political campaign training programs. Subtly aligning with the same emotional wavelength opens minds and directs them toward a sense of trust at the same pace. If it's noticed, the connection breaks instantly. Has anyone ever used this hack with you before? The anchor hack. An anchor is when the mind uses the first piece of information it receives as a reference point. It could be a number, an emotion, or an image. Whatever it is, the first contact determines subsequent perception. Let's say you couldn't wake up on time and you're going to be late for work. You call your boss and tell him that you're sick and won't be able to come to work. The reference point is now the scenario where you didn't come to work. When you call again and say you'll come, even if it's late, you're no longer someone who's late for work, but someone who wasn't going to come to work, but will come anyway, even if it's late. This method, used in the business world to make sales prices seem more charming than they are, is now on the banned list in marketing training, because the anchor subtly manages expectations. The brain holds on to the first piece of information like a hook and shapes subsequent information accordingly. In a Stanford experiment on decision-making, when participants were shown high numbers first and then low numbers, their predictions systematically aligned with the first number. This seemingly simple anchoring manipulation is truly powerful. However, ones I will explain are even more powerful. The silence gap. Hack. The human brain cannot tolerate gaps. Even a few seconds of silence during a conversation triggers an "I must respond" alarm in the mind. A person using this technique asks a critical question, and if the answer is unsatisfactory, they do not respond and continue to remain silent. They maintain eye contact and use body language to signal "continue." The other person cannot withstand this silence for more than a few seconds, and usually reveals more information than they had planned. Negotiation experts used this method in training for years, until ethical debates erupted. Because silence, though it may seem like a passive behavior, creates mental pressure. In a communication experiment conducted in 2016, it was measured that when the silence lasted more than 4 seconds, the stress level of the other party increased by 35%. By simply remaining silent, you are manipulating the other person's mind, causing them stress and getting what you want. It's quite unsettling. That's why the silence gap is no longer taught in some leadership and sales training programs. However, there are still educators who defend the ethics of this technique and continue to use it. Do you think it's ethical? Would you use it? Crumb Information hack. This technique exploits the brain's desire to complete things. The human mind wants to complete incomplete information. The story, the answer, the picture, anything incomplete triggers curiosity. The person using this method gives the other person a small hint, but never reveals the whole story. For example, "I'll tell you about it, but when the time is right," or "There's a very interesting side to this, we'll talk about it later." The brain wants to close this open end. To complete the information, the person who provided the fragmentary information is needed. Known as a teaser in the marketing world, this method works much more powerfully in one-on-one communication, because when curiosity is combined with trust, The mind that wants the rest of the information is very open to becoming dependent on the person. For this reason, this technique has been banned in some therapy and coaching programs because it can lead to manipulation, especially in emotional relationships. As you can see, fragmentary information can easily make a person dependent on another, and the dependent person may not even realize it. It's truly terrifying and shocking, isn't it? You'll keep being surprised and shocked. Planting question hack. A planting question hides its own assumption in the answer. Thus, the other person accepts that assumption without realizing it. For example, when you ask, "What will the team's reaction be if you accept this offer?" Or, "Where do you think we should have our second date?" You are actually assuming in advance that the offer will be accepted. The respondent first enters your frame and then acts within it. This technique has been used everywhere from legal interrogations to bargaining tables. But later scientific research showed that people unknowingly confirm the pre-assumptions contained in questions. And this is manipulation in the truest sense. That's why this method has been banned in some academic discussion platforms and political debates, because the planting question steals the right to freely shape one's thinking. Think about it. Making someone who has not yet said yes talk as if they have already made that decision in their mind. It's very effective and definitely unethical. And of course, when it is discovered, it will directly destroy trust. That's why, like the ones I have already told you, and I will tell you in the next 2 points, I don't recommend you to use it. Nevertheless, memorize them by heart so that you can recognize it when it happens and always be one step ahead of your enemies. Labeling hack. Labeling is assigning an identity to a person and directing them to behave according to that identity. For example, if you say, "You are already a very responsible person. You are the best person to complete this project," the person will tend to act in the direction you want in order to maintain the label responsible. It can also be used as a tool to motivate, but it is dangerous. When a person tells you, "You are a brave person, so you are the only one who can do this," they can get you to do a dangerous job. This hack, in social psychology, is called labeling. People tend to live up to other people's expectations of them because it maintains social cohesion and acceptance. This is why labeling is considered unethical in coaching and leadership training, because without realizing it, the person acts according to the identity that is assigned to them rather than their own choice. Not only positive but also negative labeling is just as manipulative. And the worst part is that almost all of us have been subjected to this hack, often unconsciously, by our parents. The biggest reason we see ourselves as failures, inadequate, and insecure is because of the negative labeling we were exposed to as children. The good news is that we are no longer children, and we can learn the most effective self-confidence buffs. Double bind hack. Double bind gives you 2 options, but they both lead to the outcome the other party wants. You feel like you're making a free choice, but the boundaries of the options have already been drawn. For example, the question, "Do you want to attend the meeting today or tomorrow morning?" completely leaves out the fact that you don't want to attend. It tells you, you are going to attend the meeting anyway, just choose the day. Instead of questioning the framework, the brain focuses on finding the most appropriate option within the given framework and gets trapped. This technique was taught for years because it was so effective in sales and negotiation. Then it became the subject of great debates in academy circles, and today it has been removed from formal training in some countries. The reason is obvious. This hack creates the illusion of free will. The person thinks they are making their own decision, but in fact, they are being manipulated. They don't even know that they are not making their own decision. Which of these hacks do you think is the most dangerous? Are you planning on using any of them? Type down your thoughts, and let's discuss.